in the garage today we have a Yard Machines lawn tractor. This is made by MTD. So I picked this up just around the corner from my house actually. It was on the curb with a free sign. So I just grabbed my ATV and some ratchet straps and dragged it home. That was about 2-3 weeks ago. It's just been sitting in my backyard under a tarp since then. So clearly this mower has been sitting a while. We've got some pretty significant dry rot, especially on the front tires. That tire had air in it like 5-10 minutes ago, and you can see it's almost flat again, and that one's not even on the rim. But honestly, I'd wager that this thing probably spent most of its life outside even before it sat. You can see it's got a lot of rust. The plastic's badly degraded. I think we've basically got a whole ecosystem living in the seat at this point. It does have a battery, but the battery tray is actually just a piece of aluminum downspout that's been screwed into the fenders, which is really nice. But hey, I guess it works. The blades are completely seized up. I already checked those. They will not spin at all. The hanger for the deck, you can see, just kind of flopping around down there. It's not connected to anything anymore. And this might be why it was sitting. The pulley should not be that low. It should be like up there. What's happened is it's basically fallen off the engine. It looks like it actually rotted to the point where the bolt was no longer holding it on, and so it just kind of fell off. But there is one good thing, and that is the engine. So this is a Briggs & Stratton 12.5 horsepower flathead. It's nice. See, it's got the commercial. It's got the cast iron sleeve, so it's a good one. Now, if we look, the code, the first 2 digits will tell us the year. So this is a 95, it looks like. So this engine's from 1995, and as long as it's not been swapped, then the mower will be from 1995 as well, which seems like about the correct year range for this model. But this engine is a good engine, so what I'm going to do today is see if we can get that engine running. Now, first thing I want to do is check the oil. It actually looks pretty good. Don't see any metal in it. Of course, it'll need to be changed, but it's fine just to try to start it. Now the air filter. Kind of pre-filter's falling apart. Got some corrosion on the cage, but it's definitely not the worst filter I've ever seen. And the carburetor throat looks very clean, so that's good. Okay, so should just need to take care of the carburetor, and this engine will be a runner. We even got some lights because MTD likes DRLs for some reason. So this carburetor is in pretty rough shape. That stud isn't even tight. That's not good. So pop that off. And there we have our carburetor. Okay, so right off the bat, the most noticeable problem is that the plastic fuel nipple is just completely broken off. It became brittle because it was exposed to the elements for so long. This carburetor might still be savable though. You can buy that part, but we won't know until we open it up. Oh, the gasket's okay. Not great. Ooh. Ooh. That's not good. This is bad. This is one of the worst carburetors that I've actually dealt with. Yeah, I think I might just go ahead and dive into the parts bin right now. Okay, so there's good news and bad news. The bad news is I don't have another carburetor I can just swap in. The good news is I'm able to find enough parts to make this one work. So obviously this one is pretty bad, but I can bring it back. I've done that before. I managed to find another one of these fuel nipples. It is used, but it looks like it's in decent condition. And I have a spare needle, which is not great, but it should work in the event that this one is ruined. Now I know a bunch of people right now are screaming at me that I should just buy a cheap Chinese carburetor and throw it on there. But the thing is, in case you haven't noticed, that mower is currently taking up space in my garage, and I'm really not interested in waiting a week for parts to show up. So I'm going to cobble this together and make it work. Also a good demonstration of how to bring back a carburetor that looks like it's beyond savable. So first, we need to get this thing apart. So there is some corrosion buildup on there, but I can't tell if the needle itself is corroded, but it looks like it's in pretty decent condition, all things considered. To be honest, I don't usually even remove this screw, but since it's so corroded, I figured there might be some extra junk in there that I need to get out. Looks pretty good. Okay, so normally this is the part where I would take out the emulsion tube slash main jet, but because it's corroded, I don't want to attempt that just yet because I got a sneaking suspicion it's just going to strip out. So first, we'll give it a soak in the ultrasonic cleaner. And we're going to put it in for 30 minutes. But we might have to do more than one cycle. Okay, so this is what our parts look like after being in the ultrasonic cleaner. This was the wrong way up, so didn't really get cleaned. The needle is not the greatest. It's got some corrosion and the plating is flaking off a bit, but the rubber is good, so it should function. Most of the heavy rust buildup is gone now. We just got a little bit of staining left, and it looks like the main jet has cleared out pretty nicely. The bowl is usable, but doesn't look the greatest. Now I took another look and I did manage to find this bowl, so we'll probably just throw that on there. So now I need to extract the main jet slash emulsion tube, and then we'll put it in for one final soak after we clean that all out. So these jets are made of brass. The body of the carburetor is aluminum, and when they've been sitting like this, and especially when they've had rust or corrosion in them, they get seized in there pretty well. And because the jet is made of brass, it's very easy to strip it out. And once you strip it out, pretty much the only way to get it out is with a extractor, and that of course ruins the jet. So I'm not even going to try to take it out the way it sits right now. Instead, I'm going to do something that I'm pretty sure is pictured under the do not do this section of most carburetor manuals. I'm going to apply heat. So I'm just going to heat up the top portion of the carburetor, try to avoid putting too much heat into the bottom. Okay, now we have this bit which I specially ground for this purpose. Apply downward pressure. And there we go, comes right out. Now, even though I've broken it loose, it's still quite tight in the bore, so we don't want to force it. And there is our main jet and emulsion tube. So since it had such a hard time coming out, I'm going to just chase the threads real quick with a 5/16-24 tap. This way, when I go to put the jet back in, it'll go in nice and easily. And now just clean out all the holes on the emulsion tube, make sure they're clear. And we'll make sure that these passages are all clear. And that's it. This is ready for another soak in the ultrasonic cleaner. Okay, so our parts are done running through the ultrasonic cleaner. So before we reassemble everything, I'm going to go ahead and polish the valve seat. So this is just some polishing compound, Q-tip. Make sure that seat is clean. Give it a fighting chance of sealing. Okay, so now we are ready to reassemble. Start with this jet here. I'm just going to screw this in until it's lightly seated and then back it out 1.5 turns thereabouts. That should be about good for initial. Now our main jet and emulsion tube. Now before I put the bowl on, because this is an older gasket and it's probably not going to seal the best on its own, I'm going to coat it in some motor oil to help it out a little bit. So this is the bowl from my parts bin. And then the nut. A little bit of oil on this nipple to help it seal. And just push it on. Alright, ready to go back on the mower. So this is the choke linkage. Now I'm actually using an older gasket, but that's still in good shape. This carburetor will likely have to come off at some point, so as long as the gasket seals for now, that's all that matters. Alright, the carburetor is all in. Put put a new fuel line in because the old one was just solid as a rock. Now we're ready to see if it'll run. Well, it runs, and it actually runs really well, especially considering this is probably the first time it's run in years. It doesn't have any knocking, ticking, smoking, no big sputtering or anything like that. It does sound a tad bit off, but I'm pretty sure that's just this muffler. I guess the bolts came loose or something. It seems to be just kind of rattling around behind that cover. Did figure out very quickly that this is completely backwards. Fast is slow, slow is fast. Chuck doesn't work with it, so you have to do it manually. Now, as for the carburetor, if I actually want to put this on something and use it for anything, I'm definitely going to have to take that carburetor back apart and put a new float bowl gasket and a new needle and seat in it. These Walbro LMTs are just notorious for the needle and seat leaking and flooding out the engine. And in fact, if you notice, I've got a pair of clamps on it because even though I polished the seat, this one is still leaking and it's putting some gas into the intake when the engine's not running. But the engine does run and it's a good engine. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below.